Hi, I'm Sue from Sue Sherman Quilts, and I'm back today to talk to you about how to make the Giraffe Duo quilt. It can be made as in this version with both a male and a female giraffe on a single quilt, or you can make a smaller quilt with only one giraffe. It's a little less work, male or female, your choice. Today I'm going to be working with this one. It's using the fabrics from the kit. The Giraffe Duo is available either as a pattern or as a kit. If you get the pattern, you get this full color instruction book. You get the pattern pieces drawn, which shows you how to cut out the pattern pieces, and a layout drawing, which shows you how to lay out the pattern pieces to make the final quilt. If you get the kit, you get all those same things, and in addition, you get these fabrics. There's a piece of ordinary black pre-dyed cotton lawn. There's a piece of dark brown and light brown giraffe colored fabrics, which are hand dyed by me here in my laundry room. And you get the background. The background is individually hand painted with dyes. That's a thickened dye, and I manually put each one on with a paintbrush. And so they each have a cloud pattern, and they're each a little bit different. The only other material that you'll need to make the project, to make the quilt top, is a piece of two-sided fusible webbing. And I recommend for this that you use a product called applique. It has not a lot of adhesive on it, so it's not very gummy when you come to quilt it. And really this is all about the quilting. You'll notice in the giraffe, the way I quilt it involves a lot of heavy quilting through 2 layers of applique, in addition to the background fabric and the batting and the backing. So that's quite a lot of adhesive of the product that you have that you're heavily quilting through. And in order for that not to be a pain, it's really best to use a fusible product that doesn't have a lot of adhesive on it. But in addition to not having a lot of adhesive, it still needs to be repositionable, because there are quite a lot of small pieces and you're going to want to position them, get them all in the right spot without them moving away from you. So they need to be able to stick down prior to the point that you come to put them, to iron them down and have them in their final position. The product that I found that works the best for this is called applique. So it comes in a roll that's 20 inches wide. You can buy it generally by the inch if you go to your quilt store. And the piece that you need is 38 inches long to do the 2 giraffes. You use a smaller piece for just doing 1 giraffe, and if you do that, you're going to need to probably cut the pattern piece in order to figure out the positioning. I've set it up nicely so that the 38-inch piece that you buy exactly fits on top of the pattern pieces drawing that comes with the quilt. Or sorry, the pattern pieces drawing that comes with the pattern. I am going to draw on it with a marker. It's just an ordinary fine black marker, and I'm going to draw all of the lines. So the drawing, the main cutting lines, I'm going to draw their solid lines on the pattern pieces, and I'm going to draw them as solid lines. There are also dash lines, and these dash lines are rough cut lines, so you maybe don't need to draw them quite as accurately. And there are also some dot dash lines. Those are placement lines. And I think that the best plan is to copy them exactly the way they are on the pattern. So if it's a dot dash line, copy it as a dot dash line, and if it's a solid line, copy it as a solid line. And the solid lines in particular, it's best to try to get them as close as you can to the original pattern. I think that you will have the most success if you do that. The one thing that you won't need to copy is the numbers. The method that I use, the jigsaw puzzle method of assembling this applique, does not require numbers, and I think you'll find that it's a little bit easier than some of the other methods that do. Those methods might be good for more regular patterns, but I find that for these really irregular patterns with lots of tiny pieces, I anyway prefer to do my jigsaw puzzle method, and it doesn't require you to copy the numbers. Now that I've finished tracing all the pattern markings onto my two-sided fusible webbing, I'm going to go ahead and cut everything out, and that's going to be on the dashed lines. So I'm rough cutting all of the pieces. Oh, but before I do that, I need to mention, because I'm doing two giraffes, one of the things that can happen later is I can get confused as to which pieces go with which giraffe. So I've copied onto my applique a little M or a little F to say if it's male or female. I've rough cut all my pieces, and I have them sitting on my table in 3 piles. I have one pile for the light brown, one for the dark brown, and one for the black fabric. So starting with the dark brown fabric, I've ironed my fabric and I lay it down on the table, and I'm going to use it for the nose ridges for the 2 giraffes and for the main body spots pieces of the 2 giraffes. I don't need to worry about straight of green. This is a raw edge applique project, and there's no grain considerations, and there's no real design in the fabric, so they can go however they fit. So similarly for the light brown fabric, I'm going to lay out the main body pieces and the ear pieces. And for the black fabric, I'm going to lay out the ossicones for the male giraffe and all these little collected little pieces of black. Once I've laid my pieces out on the correct fabric, I'm going to take them over to my iron and iron them according to the manufacturer's directions. So in this case, it's going to be 3 seconds on the front, and then I'll flip it and iron it 3 seconds on the back. Now my pieces are ironed on, and I'm going to cut them out on the cutting lines. Now it's very important when I cut, on the black ones, I'm going to cut all the way around the ossicones. For these little collections of pieces, I'm just going to go around the outside of the whole thing because I don't want these little pieces to get lost. When it comes to the dark brown, I'm going to cut only around the very outside. The cutting line that runs all the way around the outside. I don't wish to cut, at this point, I'm not going to cut the individual spots, because if I did that, they would all get mixed up and lost, and it would be difficult to find them again. So for now, just cutting around the very outside of all the pieces. After cutting all the pieces out, I put them in 2 piles, and these are different piles now from what I had before. This is all of the pieces for the female giraffe, and this is all the pieces for the male giraffe. Because I'm going to be doing both of them, I want to make sure I don't mix them up. So I'm going to take all the pieces for the female giraffe, put them over here. So now what I've got is the body, upper and lower. I've got the ear. I've got the ossicones. I've got all these little individual black bits. And I've got the nose ridge. Now I've got all the pieces for the male giraffe together, and what I'm going to do is start cutting out the brown spots and putting them onto the background of the male giraffe's body. So first thing to notice is that these 2 pieces lay over each other fairly well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and cut. I'm going to start with this spot. I'm going to use a sharp and smallish pair of scissors. A medium-sized pair is the best, but I would say it's more important that they be sharp, and the size is probably less important. So I'm going to go around and cut this piece. And if you're not inclined to follow the lines exactly, then I would strongly recommend that at the very least you cut fairly smoothly. We don't want any jerky or pointy lines here. So I've cut this piece out, and now when I put this, when I overlay the spots piece onto the background piece, you'll see that there's an opening here, and it's just the right size for this piece I've just cut out. So that's like the last piece of a jigsaw puzzle. It's telling me exactly where it goes. And so now I'm going to peel the backing off this piece, making sure that the product, the applique, remains with the fabric, and I'm going to stick it into place. So I'm just going to keep doing this until I finished all of the spots on this piece. It's a little bit tedious, I won't deny that, but I don't normally sit at my table in my studio while I'm doing this. I would normally take a cup of tea. I might put the work on a tray and take it down and watch TV. Generally, you can do this when you're comfortable. Once you get going, doesn't require a lot of thought. If you're doing that smaller piece, it's sometimes handy to use a pair of tweezers. That one's not very good. There we are, and once again, overlay the piece, line up what I've already cut, and this piece goes exactly right there. I don't really have to think about it. Now I'm down to the last few very small pieces, and I'm continuing with them just the same as I did for the other ones. Cut them out, and these ones perhaps a bit more slowly. Definitely want to use the tweezers for the small pieces. These little pieces up near the neck are really quite a pain to do, but to me they're important. In the finished giraffe, they give a strong sense of the creases of the neck, and I think they're important to the realistic look of the quilt. So they do take a little bit more time and patience, but I think it's worth it. And I'm still, even at this point, doing one at a time. I cut it out, I put down the piece, I flip it over, and put it in the right spot. There we go. So the next thing I have to do is turn to the nose piece, and there's a couple of things I need to do here. First of all, I need to cut out this one piece here that's separate. And just like the spots that were on the main part of the giraffe, this is like an extra spot that's next to the nose piece. And this one, it's going to cover up those two little spots. It's going to cover that up. And otherwise, it's going to just kind of line up with the rest of the giraffe. If you're really not confident doing this, you can use the layout drawing to get this right. And I'm going to stick that right in there where it goes. Oh, maybe a little in further. There we go. And now I'm going to finish cutting out this piece. There we go. And, oh, now I need to cut out the nostrils. And I'll just check that there's no rough edges on the front. The last thing I'm going to do before I put it all together is just go around the edge and check that there's no bits that don't look like they're lined up. And just trim a few spots to make sure it looks all good. Oh, there's a spot where the white's sticking out a little bit. We can correct some of these things with the quilting, but it's sometimes easier to do it at this point. I'm starting with the layout drawing, and it's lying flat on my table. I put the background fabric over top of it so that I can see the layout drawing through my fabric. And now I'm going to put all my pieces on. The male giraffe is standing a little bit behind the female giraffe, so he's going to go down first. And I'm going to try, generally speaking, to put all the pieces down with the ones at the back to go first, so that I don't have to reposition anything too much. Starting with the ear then, it's going to go right here. And the ossicones will go there. And you'll notice the ossicones is a single piece, but once it gets covered up with the piece that goes in front of it, you'll lose that center and it'll look like separate pieces. The next thing to go down is the well, I'm going to put this piece here. This is the nostrils, and it goes in behind the nostrils, and it's going to go this way up, right about there. And for this, there's no getting around having the black fabric be behind the white fabric. So in order for it not to give us any shadow, I want to make sure that that the black fabric is behind all of the white fabric that's showing inside those nostrils. So the next thing is the big piece. And I'm going to put it down here, line up all the other places. That should be about right. And now this other piece, the nose ridge, is going to go on top of that. And it goes, it's going to cover up those two pieces and this piece here. And you want to line it up there. If you're not comfortable doing this, just kind of winging it like I just did, you can do it by carefully inspecting where the pieces are underneath. And I can see now that I've got a piece of black sticking out from behind here. I can reposition that piece of black, or I can just cut a bit off, which is what I'm going to do. There we go. And now I'm going to place these little black bits. So originally we were making sure they stayed all together. Now it's time for them to be separated. So this one has a little bit of a placement line, so we know that that goes here, and the placement line is going to be where it goes underneath the other piece. So I have to lift up the this little bit of the head and stick that underneath it. Now this one goes in the other ear, and it goes kind of like that. And again, I can look. Yeah, look at the pattern piece underneath to make sure it's right. For the eye, I'm going to need to be a lot more careful than I was for those bits. The eye, these are tiny, tiny pieces, but as you well know, where an eye goes on an animal has a lot to do with how realistic it's going to look. I think that's about right. Yep. There's a bit of thread hanging off there. I gotta get that. There we go. And now this last eye, and this eye is really just a sliver. It's got that lovely big giraffe eyelash. It's sticking out a little bit past the edge of the face, and that's the way it's supposed to, with the eyelash sticking out further. So there's a completed male giraffe. Now I've assembled the pieces for the female giraffe, and I'm going to place them on the background, and she's going to go just slightly in front of the male giraffe here, so that she'll overlap a little bit like that. I've ironed all the pieces very firmly onto the backing fabric according to the manufacturer's directions for the fusible product. I now have a completed quilt top, and it's ready to be quilted, which will be demonstrated in the part 2 video in this series. I thank you very, very much for joining me today, and happy quilting!